Good evening and welcome to this meeting of full council at East Cambridgeshire District Council. And we are here tonight for the full council, at which both photography and use of mobiles as well, but I would like them quiet and turned to silent at the very least if you can't turn them off. We support the use of social media during the meeting. That's up to you. But as I say, if you can keep the devices quiet, we'd be very, very grateful. We've got a short agenda tonight, but there could be long consequences to it. So I want to get straight into it. So we'll start with point 1 on the agenda, which is public question time. Someone's got to walk around and check. Right. Let me guess the outcome.
So 7 o'clock in a minute.
Yeah. There are no public questions. Apologies for absence. I think we have two apologies for absence.
I've
Jane?
received one, and I've had Councillor Holtzman.
Okay. Do you want to give the apology?
And Councillor Shepherd.
Councillor Shepherd. Okay, thank you. Declarations of interest. Before we go to members' generic declarations of interest, I'm going to invite Maggie just to say a word on the roles and responsibilities of any dual hatters, as in those that are at county, because it is applicable to the debate that we're going to have later today.
Yeah, I was going to say, Chairman, thank you. Was just if obviously some of you have debated this at county, and all I was going to say is as long as you're here with an open mind, you are probably predisposed, but obviously if you haven't got an open mind, then you could be seen to be predetermined. Thank you.
I think we understood that.
Yeah.
And that's not me digging at you, Meg. No, I think everybody knows that. Are there any personal declarations of interest on any item this evening? I'm seeing none, so we'll move straight on to Chair's announcements, which there are none. So we'll move straight on to number 5, the making of the modified Wychford neighbourhood plan, and I understand this is going to be led by Isabel.
Thank you, Chair. So the Wychford Neighbourhood Plan, area plan, was adopted in May 2020, but what you've got before you at the moment is the updated plan that Wychford Parish Council wanted to do to include a chapter on climate change. So the plan has now completed all the processes required, and this is the final stage for the council to formally make the neighbourhood plan part of our development plan for East Cambridgeshire with immediate effect. The recommendations are set out in section 2.
Thank you, Isabel. And do we have a proposer for the plan, please? That's Councillor Bill Hunt, and the plan to be seconded by Councillor Lorna Dupre. Thank you very much. Okay, open to members for debate. The proposer, would you like to speak on the subject, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think this is a very happy occasion, and I'm delighted that Wychford have come to this stage. I really would compliment them on their hard work and dedication. These things, they flap in front of us for a few minutes and we just say yes or no or make a few criticisms. But there's been a real load of hard work gone into this, and we should, one of the recommendations is we're congratulating Wychford Parish Council, but I think it wants to be congratulate them very much. It's a teamwork. It's not just a couple of the parish councillors. It's a complete teamwork. And normally in these cases, and I don't see why it isn't now, there's a lot of cooperation and hard work done by officers in this building. So I think it's not just Wychford Parish Council, it's also East Cambridge District Council. It's not legally required to do what they've done, but it is a good thing, and it's good for them financially, and it's good for them for the prestige of Wychford Parish Council. And I congratulate the Parish Council on their preparation, and I formally make the Wychford Neighbourhood Plan as modified a part of a development plan for East Cambridgeshire with immediate effect. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. And Lorna, do you want to reserve your right in what's going to be a lengthy debate, or would you like to speak now?
I'm happy to speak now.
Thank you.
Chair, if that's all right, because I genuinely hope this won't be a contentious item. I'm speaking as the county councillor representing Wychford, And I love all my parishes equally, but I love Witchford among those. And I want to congratulate them on the hard work that they have put into this and on the vision that they have for their community. They have really taken on board the concept of neighbourhood planning, and they have got a real vision for their area, which they want to move forward on. They blaze trails and they enjoy doing that. They take charge of their own area, of their own destiny. And there is within Witchford a very strong contingent of very climate friendly and environmentally focused residents who spend a huge amount of time trying to move ahead on this. And it's really great to see that being reflected in this updated and revised neighbourhood plan. Councillor Hunt said that the work that they have done to put this climate chapter together is not legally required. He's absolutely right about that. And in fact, one of the difficulties that many parishes face is that they are often told by their advisors that it's actually quite difficult to put climate related matters into their neighbourhood plans, and it can be quite a struggle. So I'm particularly pleased that they have managed to find their way to putting together a really good climate chapter in their neighbourhood plan and blast through all of that. I really hope that they will set a precedent for other parishes with or without neighbourhood plans at the moment. And I hope that other parishes will look at this neighbourhood plan and go, can we actually revise our existing plan to incorporate some of those ideas that will suit us
Agreed.
and the environment we live in? Or if they're not yet blessed with a neighbourhood plan, maybe they will start thinking we might be able to be more ambitious than we thought we were going to be. So it is an absolute pleasure to see this here tonight, and I very much hope that it will be supported unanimously.
Thank you. Any members on any speakers on this? Yep, leader.
Just very briefly, Chairman, thank you. I just want to offer my congratulations to the effort that's gone into this modification and to all of the hard work. And I do sometimes when I used to be able to walk a dog, my current dog won't go for walks yet, but when I used to be able to walk a dog, I did frequent some of the footpaths around Witchford, which the community puts huge effort into creating and maintaining and joining up. And there's been a lot of work on that over many years. And around there, if you go at the right time of year, you see massive effort at biodiversity and beautiful planting. So it's a real feather in their cap, and I just want to offer them my warm-hearted congratulations.
Duly noted. Anybody else? Well, I'd like to say something from the chair, and I think it echoes a little bit of what Councillor Dupre said. Stole a little bit of what I was going to say, but well, no, not at all. I think what we have before us is an exemplary neighbourhood plan and an example for other parishes to look at. And I would urge anybody listening and watching this to do so, because a neighbourhood plan is not a document to get a tick exercise on and then sat on the back of a shelf gathering dust. This one actually proves by the fact that they've amended it tonight that it's a living and breathing and worked on neighbourhood plan. And I think that's the thing that we should welcome. Every neighbourhood plan should be a living and breathing document by the people closest to where it affects. So congratulations to Witchford on this. I'm seeing no further wishes to speak. So I think on this, we go back to the proposer to sum up.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's really pleasant to have such agreement across the chamber, and I'm going to enjoy the moment. But I think it's all sufficient for me to say that I propose that we congratulate Witchford Parish Council and we formally make the neighbourhood plan part of the development plan for East Cambridgeshire with immediate effect. And I hope and believe this will be something that can be unanimous.
I'm going to ask for the people of Witchford who might be watching this for a quick show of hands on this, rather than just to take it as a fait accompli. And I think it will show the people of Witchford that we as members appreciate their work. So all those in favour, please. Do we agree, Jane, that is unanimous?
Yep.
Thank you very much, members, and thank you very much. Well done, Witchford. That's 50% of the way through this evening. Wow. We go to number 6, the local government reorganisation submission to government. Again, star of the show tonight. This is going to be led by Isabel.
Thank you, Chair. So the following item is to update council on the progress of local government reorganisation in the Cambridgeshire area, the work that's been undertaken to date, and the preliminary submission to the Minister. As you'll be aware, the Minister wrote to all councils inviting them to submit proposals for reorganisation by the 28th of November 2025 and asked that an initial proposal was submitted by tomorrow, 21st of March. So to date, chief executives and leaders from each authority in the area have met to discuss how to develop those final proposals for November. And the letter in Appendix 2 is the proposed submission to government for the March deadline tomorrow, and recommendations are set out in Section 2.
Thank you very much, Isabel. Do we have a proposer for this, please?
I'd like to propose, Chairman.
Okay, so that's councillor Bailey and a seconder.
Happy to second, Chair.
It's councillor Huffer. Thank you very much. Proposer, would you like to lead on this, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. And I didn't really want to be here, but you know, I've worked in my professional career with dozens of local authorities across the UK over many years. And I can honestly, hand on heart, say that this council is the best. And I know I'm biased, but of course the Times newspaper did rate us second best council in the country last year. I've been a councillor here for 18 years. It's gone unbelievably quickly. I absolutely love this council. I love everything it stands for, its place in the heart of our community and everything that it's achieved. It's a matter of huge personal pain to me that the government is taking the approach it is to local government reorganisation. I do support the need to reorganise local government in Cambridgeshire, and I support the idea of having one principal council that does everything. But I totally reject the idea that a council of 500,000 plus people will do better than one of 90,000. You've only got to look at the evidence. The unitary councils of 500,000 or more are mostly failing. We're not failing, we're thriving. We're small, we're nimble, we're embedded in the community, and we are different. A council is only as good as its people, and we do have the best people. And I thank the staff from the bottom of my heart. They truly do go above and beyond to be the best that we can be. And it's down to us to make sure that our staff can continue to thrive in whatever the future holds. We need to look after our staff. We need to listen to them as we try to shape the best future that we can. And I say to the other councils across Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, you would do very well to listen to our staff about how we do things here. And you might just learn a thing or two, and it might just be a bit different. Our housing team runs one of the best homelessness prevention services in the country. Our financial team has delivered 12 years of council tax freezes with no cuts, and we're still investing in services and infrastructure. Our trading companies provided over £5 million of financial benefit to the council by running a thriving market, a popular parks and open spaces maintenance service, and delivering 183 new homes, 48 of which are affordable, including 100k homes. I've had the pleasure of being involved in meeting 2 of the new 100k home purchasers, soon to get their keys to their new homes in Ely, as well, of course, as homes owned and operated by the community through community land trusts. And our building control team has huge market share. Developers are choosing to use us for their services. I haven't got time to mention everyone, but wherever you look, you will find staff that are going above and beyond and doing things differently. And I must confess, I'm struggling to see a good outcome for East Cambs residents from this upheaval. Whatever the new geography, we'll be joining with councils that are servicing external debt costs. Both upper tier authorities have serious financial pressures and debt burdens, but all the district councils too are carrying external debt. We're the only council in Cambridgeshire that's not having to use taxpayers' money to fund debt interest payments. And there are so many problems with moving to large geographies. There's a loss of local focus in service delivery, more remote services, less access to staff, means slower, more cumbersome, more costly, loss of identity and local accountability, more bureaucracy, longer waiting times to get things done, computer says no, loss of face-to-face type responses. Reduced representation, so larger patch sizes, councillors dealing with all the issues of unitary authority, less councillors, less representation of the people, and I worry about professionalisation of the role. It's likely to mean daytime meetings and online meetings. And it seems that the public agrees with us. 890 responses to our survey, an astonishing number in less than 3 weeks, and 78% of people don't support the idea and only 8% do. And at the recent meeting of leaders, I flew a bit of a kite and I made a pitch for something different. So I will halt now because I'm very keen to hear from other people across the chamber, and I hope everybody will take the chance to give us their views. Perhaps not at this stage to talk about geographies and lines on maps, because the work is going on to get hold of the data and look at the different possibilities and what that might look like. But let's talk about principles, what matters, what we want to hold on to in the future, and what's special about East Cambridgeshire. And then I do have something to say at the other end of this discussion, Chairman, about perhaps a quite a different alternative view about what might be possible.
Okay, thank you. Seconder for this, please. You reserve your right.
Chair.
Thank you. Before we go to the speakers, I'd just like to say one thing here, and I'd just like to reiterate that everybody should have an opportunity to speak, so you all get an opportunity to speak. However, what I would add tonight is that we're not here really about lines on maps and things like that. We're here about the process of this journey of local government reorganisation. So, but I would encourage you all to speak up, particularly about your ward and for your ward. So with that, Councillor Inskip, you were first up. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The current structure of district and county councils was created more than 50 years ago. So after half a century, it makes sense to review what is still the best structure for local government. And therefore I support the need to review the existing structures and to determine whether they're still the best way to serve local residents. Where I part ways with the approach being taken by the government is that the reorganisation is being rushed through with unnecessary constraints being placed on possible solutions. And to bring around a change which may exist for another half century, we should have sufficient time to consult and engage with local communities. And that's just not going to be possible with a deadline of November this year for that final proposal. By constraining the reorganisation to existing district council building blocks, we're excluding addressing those long-standing anomalies with district boundaries, as well as new anomalies that have been created with new developments that's taken place in the decades since the last reorganisation. But we are where we are. We have a government with a large working majority determined to push through reorganisation quickly. And therefore we need to focus our energies on getting the best outcomes for the people we represent. Now, unitary authorities are a good thing. So in my 20s, I was elected as a councillor to a district council that became a unitary in the 1990s. And it had very positive outcomes for residents. As a unitary councillor, I could directly take up all residents' issues, no longer having to say, sorry, that's a county council matter, you'll need to raise it with my colleague. And many decisions were made closer to those affected. Today, we have councillors from Wisbech presiding over fixing potholes in Wood Ditton, councillors from Sawtrey making decisions on adult social care and so on. A unitary, for example, covering the south and east of Cambridgeshire, would bring those decisions closer to home. Now, former district services will cover a larger area, but that does provide opportunities to benefit from economies of scale, and larger councils also tend to have more in-house expertise, leading to less engagement of expensive consultants. And there are solutions for larger councils to have devolved structures for more local decision making. Take planning. Legislation today allows for geographic planning committees covering part of a council area, allowing the retention of an East Cambs planning committee with local councillors making decisions about local applications. Now, the rules and constraints mean there are a limited number of options for those new unitaries. Now, most commuters in East Cambridgeshire travel to work in Cambridge or the surrounding area. Post 16 students travel to Hills Road, Long Road or CRC, hospital patients to Addenbrooke's, Papworth and the Rosie. The major retail, sports and arts facilities outside the district around Cambridge. Major rail links take us into Cambridge, as does the A10. So in my view, bringing East Cambridge together with Cambridge and South Cambs does provide new opportunities. It means councillors elected to East Cambs residents will have a seat at the table when important decisions where in the past we've been excluded. But whilst there are opportunities with local government reorganisation, there are also threats if we don't engage in a productive and way and align with a preferred option. We could find ourselves paired with a distant Peterborough or Huntingdon and St Neots, linked with only a couple of miles of common boundary. So there is much wrong with the current plans for local government reorganisation, but we would be foolish not to engage and to fight for the best outcome of our local residents. And I hope we can all work together to do that.
Thank you, councillor Inskip. Anybody else like to speak on the matter, please? Come on. Councillor Horgan, please.
Nothing hugely prepared. I just wanted to relate an experience I had. I attended recently an LGA training workshop, and a couple of the speakers that were there had actually been through a unitary process some time ago. In fact, around 2007, 2008, and the speaker was a chief executive of a Bedford authority. And listening to this guy talk, it did fill me with a little bit of fear and trepidation of what lies ahead in terms of reorganisation of key services that could affect the sort of things that have been mentioned earlier: adult social care, children's services, etc. But it was a comment from a Peterborough city councillor that was there that really brought it home to me. And he hadn't been a councillor for very long. He was only elected, I think, last year. And he said that the one thing that really appalled him was that where he operates, £1 in every 5 of council tax that is raised is used purely to service their debt. Now, I think, know that both Peterborough and Cambridge have some significant borrowings, and therefore those debts have to be serviced. And I think, as our leader said earlier, we've been very prudent in making sure that every penny of council tax that's raised in East Cambridgeshire is spent on delivering services back to residents and not paying the interest on some loan that may or may not be benefiting the residents. So it does concern me that our prudent measures have, well, they may be all in vain. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, councillor. Very well put. Councillor Vellacott.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I wrote my notes initially, absolutely slamming the government, and then I rewrote them. The council already knows my views on government and their approach to rural areas. Look, I agree with the residents from our survey. New unitary councils are too big. They are too remote. I share Councillor Bailey's and Councillor Morgan's concern about debt. Obviously, our council tax freeze is at risk, and we debated the importance of that only 4 short weeks ago. There's been a refusal to listen by the government, such we've had to run our own consultation. And frankly, this is centralisation, not devolution. But I disagree with the approach of some colleagues, especially some at the county council. We really shouldn't be drawing lines today. We really shouldn't. We don't have all the data yet. We don't know what will work, but most importantly, we need to consider our residents at the forefront of all of this. And that's the subject of my contribution, particularly. I will try not to go over 5 minutes. I've heard some arguments that our residents looked at Cambridge. Many absolutely do, not all, but many. So we should go with them. I've heard others say we're rural like Finland, and we should go there. There are a variety of concerns. The one I have in particular is about strategic planning. Of course, Greater Cambridge has its own arrangements for that, and I will not, under any circumstances, wherever the lines end up being, allow the government to brick over East Cambs, because that is not in the culture of our area. But I say what's most important is not where we go and what we do there, but where we come back to ultimately as a council, just as district council model does at the moment. It's really clear from our survey, and it's all very well for us to stand here saying it, but our residents love East Cambs District Council. They really do. And so if we're to continue the legacy of East Cambs and all the best parts of it, we have to have a council that fundamentally understands East Cambs. You know, I have friends in the area with small children. I think this isn't really for the people living here now alone. It's for them as well. But local government reorganisation doesn't account for some of the variation that Councillor Inskip talks about across the county. Greater Camden will have massive growth and it will become fairly urban. East Camden and Fenland are quite rural and quaint. Hunts is both. We can't have it all. So I thought about, well, how do we reconcile this? My dad actually says something really interesting to me, a sort of a general piece of life advice. And he says, don't decide what you want to do, decide the kind of life that you want to have. So I propose in some ways that this council listens to my dad. I mean, what kind of service do we want for residents when they come home after a long day and turn to their councillor for something? That's the more important question than where should we draw the lines at this point. And this letter does address those shared principles. And if we align on it, the boundaries, I think, will follow eventually, provided we have decided where we want to be going. The boundaries will make themselves obvious. So let's not force this. Unfortunately, the letter is quite empty. That's understandable at this stage, because it will take time we haven't yet been afforded. And we've shown through this letter that we're willing to work through that tumult. So I think it's absolutely the right thing at this time. And as we've all said, we have to do this without political self-interest. This is way too important. The earlier we draw the lines before deciding what we want to achieve, I think the more of a risk that politicising it becomes. There's too many people involved for us to prioritise ourselves. You know, I hate this. I will be honest about it, but we can't do it reluctantly. If my contribution makes one thing stick in the mind, we must not drag our heels through the ground in this, because it will only result in a self-fulfilling prophecy of a terrible failed unitary authority. I know how depressing it is. We get no say. I think we've all probably spent a number of nights in despair about this, but I remain an optimist, and I think everyone in the room should be too, because if we're not optimistic, our residents will be the ones that suffer here. And ironically, it is only small local councils that can achieve a good starting block for the bigger ones that will succeed us. So I propose, and I hold myself to this too, let's not complain about this anymore. Virtually the only aspect I agree with the Minister on, we must carry on. We've got a corporate plan to deliver, free parking to provide, another few years, I hope, of council tax freezes, a bereavement centre to build. We should focus on what matters, why we stood for election, all of us, keeping calm, carrying on eventually, and giving a voice to the voiceless as best we can. We have to be led by the people who made us councillors, not the people governing a country they don't understand. So they may abolish our council, but if we do this handover right, my view is they'll never silence Little East camps.
Sure. Thank you, Councillor Vellacott. Councillor Sharp.
Thank you, Chair. This obviously tonight is very much a holding situation to explore further avenues and options, because obviously we've got the deadline of tomorrow to send this draft letter. So no decision on the final makeup of the areas across Cambridgeshire will be made tonight, and I do not intend to comment on that tonight. But just deal with my concerns around some of the proposals. But I do support the recommendation in 2.1 and 2.2. I agree with Councillor Inskip. Something needed to be done around the layers of local government. Because if you look at, and I use the example because it's got the most layers, you look at Cambridge, they've got the county council, they've got the city council, they've got the GCP, they've got the combined authority, and they've even got the joint area committee, which is between county and district and city members. So that's 5 layers. And if you come out to the rural areas, we've got 4 where you've got parish councils, districts, county and CPCA. So I think something needed to be done. Where I have massive concerns is it's been imposed by government with little or no discussion. It was not in the manifesto. And we're here to represent residents, yet there's absolutely no provision within this for consultation with members of the public, which I believe is so important. So that is really missing. Councillor Bailey touched around one of my concerns around debt. We've got debt-laden councils around the county, whereas we are debt-free. So how is that going to work for the benefit of our residents? And government are painting this up as devolution. It's actually the reverse. This is central control from the centre, because all that the government will do is talk to the mayor. They won't talk to the constituent, or what is at the moment 7 councils if you include Peterborough, but they'll talk to the 2 or 3 unitaries, whatever whatever comes around. And again, it was touched on, I think Councillor Bailey mentioned it, the effect on officers and their careers, both here, both in the other district councils, Cambridge City Council, Peterborough and County Council. It can't be a comfortable time for them. And I think we all as members should be supporting as much as we can. But obviously we're going to go through this process till November. We've got to keep the day job going because we've got to get the bins emptied. County have got to keep the libraries running. Everything else has got to happen because the members of the public, the residents, a lot of them, and probably even some of us, don't know exactly what each council does. And all they care about is that the bins are emptied, the potholes are filled, or whatever needs to be done is done. So I think, you know, that needs to happen. And I think one of the things which is, and I think Councillor Dupre touched on it on Tuesday at the County Council, was around the ability to change the county boundaries. If you look at my division with the bizarre county boundaries around Newmarket, there's no provision to have the ability to actually try to. I'm not giving the solution to that tonight. I've got preferences, but I'm not going to go through that tonight. But again, that's another opportunity missed, I think. And then, as I say, the proposals just seem to be moving decision making away from residents and not closer. So, as I said earlier, I do support 2.1 and 2.2 on the paper that we send this letter, but obviously I know there's going to be a lot more debate and discussions before November. Thank you, members.
Thank you, Councillor Sharp. Councillor Hunt.
Thank you, Chair. This is really quite a sad day for me. I've been a member of this authority for 18 years and actually got really quite close to it. And it's managed to become almost like a human being to me because I've known it for so long. 18 years is a very long time. And I just can't believe that this thing that's been such a part of my life is being whipped away by a load of legalised people in Westminster who happen to have a majority in Parliament. And I think it's actually vandalism. And I'm not very comfortable with it at all. It's already been mentioned about the 12 years without a rise in the council tax. It's got free parking, and if you come by boat, you get free mooring. Not everybody knows that. And I look around when I walk across a car park, I get very proud of the fact that it was me who did the sign that says no charging parking here, welcome, come back soon, tell your friends. Well, that's so not council language, but it's the language of East Cants. And I think it's something we should really continue to fight for the can-do attitude that I've had from officers and colleagues in here. It's not unusual for me to want to have a hard copy of some paper, but it's not also unusual for an officer to say, oh, I'm coming past your house, Bill, when I go home, I'll drop it through your letterbox. Well, that makes it quicker and it saves the council money. And I'm in my little office and I wave at the officer and the officer waves at me. So we have a nice little interaction. That's all going to go. It really is. I think it's, and clearly, like many of us, I'm sure, I've been knocking on doors in the last month or so and asking people what they think. Well, they don't like having East Cambs District Council taken away from them. They love it. And we should do whatever we can. My colleagues may realise that cooperation is a good thing. I don't like it. It's not broken, so we shouldn't fix it. And I believe it's legalised vandalism. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. Councillor Dupre.
Thank you, Chair. I think probably everyone who is speaking tonight on this subject will start with some kind of a rant about the process. And I think that is absolutely justified because the process is absolutely rubbish. I think there is general agreement about that. It is rushed, it is inconsiderate, it does not allow us, as Councillor Sharp has said, quoting something I said, so what goes around comes around, that it doesn't allow us to address some of the obvious and long-standing anomalies in our geography. It has forced us into positions and into criteria that I think we might have wanted to have some say in before we moved forward. I have always said that there are far too many layers of government, local government in Cambridgeshire. Councillor Sharp articulated many of those, and that's not helpful for residents. I stand by that, but I think we need to think about how we can do better to address that problem without just blundering in the way the government has chosen to do. But it is the government, it is the legitimately elected government of the United Kingdom. It has set its criteria, and that is what we have broadly to work with, although it might have been a little bit more helpful if the government had been a little bit clearer about which criteria actually were criteria and which ones were a bit more flexible at the margins. But there you go. So at this stage, as has already been said, this is something of an empty letter. It is basically simply telling the government, yes, we're talking about this. It doesn't say much more than that, really, if you break it down. The approach that I take thinking about this is that the structures we have at the moment, well, I mean, the broad structures of county and district, not all the GPC and mayoralty and stuff, have been hanging around for about 50 years. And it's very likely that the outcome of this will hang around for about 50 years. So what will people be thinking? What will residents be thinking about their local government structures in the year 2075? The council tax will have been frozen for 62 years, and it'll be interesting to consider what that might actually be worth and what one might actually be able to buy with that. Will they be seriously mourning the fact that their ancestors had free green bins and they do not? I'm not sure. I think there are some far more fundamental questions, and my colleague Councillor Inskip has articulated a number of those, and to me they are all wrapped up in one fundamental question. Are we in a structure in which residents can affect and their elected representatives can affect the decisions that are made that affect their lives? And Councillor Inskip has helpfully avoided making me go through the list of kind of health, transport, education, leisure, arts, all of that kind of stuff. But I think people will want to know, can I affect this? This is how I live my life. These are the facilities I use, the roads I use, the trains I use. These are the places I go to. How do I affect how those are governed? And for too long, it seems to me, because of the obsession with a narrow geography around Cambridge and South Cambridgeshire, determining its own stuff through the GCP and other things, it seems to me that we have been, as East Cambs, frozen out of meeting rooms where decisions are made that affect us very, very greatly. And what I want to see out of this is a process whereby we can draw a geography, and we will have to draw lines on maps. We can't avoid drawing lines on maps. This is exactly what this is about. But will we end up in a position where the lines that we draw, the geography that we have, actually enables us to control, as residents and as elected representatives as well, the things that affect our lives? Now, I just want to say one final thing. In 4.6 of this report, we're told that more consultation with residents, partners and key stakeholders will be required at the appropriate time. I'd like to know a bit more about what the appropriate time is, because I know that parish councils particularly are absolutely revving to be asked about this and to express their views as parish councils. But the final point I want to make very quickly is that the administration of this council represents 50% of the council, exactly. And I will wrap up to say there is another 50%. The county council has set up a cross-party working group to look at this. I hope that this council will be doing something similar and that there will be cross-party discussions rather than a surprise in November.
Thank you, councillor Dupre. I've been quite generous there and I will
Thank you
continue
for
to
that.
be so. No, I think it's important. I think it's an interesting matter. Are there anybody else that want to speak on this? Yes, there is. Martin. Oh, I'm sorry. Hang on a minute. You're quite correct. David, sorry, I thought it was the wrong hand. Go up.
Thank you, Chair. I would just like to add to what Councillor Inskip had to say about the value of organisational review. I agree. What most disappoints me about this whole process is that there is no option or opportunity to say what we've got works well. We'd rather leave it that way. Thank you, Chair.
Wonderfully brief. Thank you very much. I'm just going to say a few words if there's nobody else to speak. Oh, I apologise. Councillor Trapp, you go first. Okay, well, I'll say my piece very well, and I'm hopefully I can say it with a little bit of brevity. I'm going to compare King Canute with Moana, right? And King Canute decided he had a problem, and he sat there and he was going to prove to the world that he could stop something that was inevitable, and he failed. Moana had a problem where her life and her family couldn't feed, and she taught herself how to sail and broke into new waters and found that actually life was more beautiful and more bountiful if you took it by yourself and went forward. Spot the grandfather in the room, right? But it's very, very right, and it's very, very true that, you know, my point on this is, and I really want to do the second part of what I want to say was, it looks like a fairly light document and a fairly bland letter. These don't come around by accident. I would like to thank the officers and the leaders involved in this for getting us this far. And I would actually echo also the approach suggested by Councillor Dupre and has taken elsewhere, that moving forward with this, everybody has a chance at a voice in this process, and we actually look across the floor for the right kind of involvement in it. I think that's the right and proper thing to do, personally. But I do think at the moment we are looking at the recommendations, we are still adopting the process, and so thank you for that tonight, and thank you for the debate so far. Councillor Trapp, your time is now.
Going to be a bit of a ramble, as all my things are. And actually addressing, first of all, I think, just state at the beginning, because the chair did ask about this, that our ward, Charlotte's and my ward, really looks to Cambridge, except perhaps Brinkley, who's probably looking more to London and commuting. But on the whole, that is where we're looking. All the train service, all the bus services, all the roads lead into Cambridge. So that we're very much a part of that. The other thing I was going to make sure, just make a few things. Would this process, would this make parish councils becoming more local, having more say? They'll be quite local and they can have more say, actually. Maybe one should be, and I'll come to this later, maybe one should be trying to introduce this kind of idea. Councillor Inskip mentioned about the planning committees. I know in East Suffolk District Council, there are two planning committees, one for North and South, because that was actually a merger of two district councils that became East Suffolk District Council. So there is a possibility there for very local specific knowledge. So there was a survey put out, wasn't there? Mentioned that 93% wanted local councillors. Once again, depending on the structure that we actually produce or try and introduce, that is still achievable. In fact, I remember, can you remember Councillor Matthew Shooter who when he was standing for election, he was promoting the idea of a one-stop shop, that he was a parish councillor, a district councillor, and a county councillor. So that was something that he was actually saying would be a good thing. The other point I was going to make was that also in that survey, I think 94% would like to be more engaged of residents. And I think that is also true for councillors. And I think we ought to be having a cross-party group working on this and talking with parish councils and bringing that to me. So, and the other thing is we ought to be thinking about, I think, in time, is trying to about the constitution, whether we can actually bring something, get a new constitution going that is actually going to with whoever we merge with eventually. I'm not drawing any lines here. Whoever we merge with is actually trying to make it, looking at it, so it is actually local. It is actually helping us to retain the local element of the council. Thank you very much.
Thank you, councillor Trapp. Councillor Alison Whelan.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, I think most of what's been said tonight is exactly right, and I don't think there's an awful lot of disagreement across here. Personally, I think unitary authorities will undoubtedly help some of the problems that we've come across with residents, but you know, the reality is we need to get this right, and we need the time to get this right. The time, you know, we need the expertise, and undoubtedly we have the expertise within officers. It's just the officers also have day jobs to do. Instead, we have a timeline that imposes ridiculous deadlines, extra costs, extra risks, and it will put huge pressure on those officers. The intention is clearly to save costs by reducing staff, reducing councillors, making access more difficult, both to councillors and to the councils. You know, like the 80-year-old who phoned me today, unable to visit the council offices because they're in Alconbury. Digitally excluded, can't do anything, can't get through to the right people as a result. You know, I raised at County Council some of the complexities that are being forced upon us by this government through multiple changes, such as with the local government pension scheme, and the additional risks that that brings, and the conflicting risks that that brings. You know, the failure to bring into account parish councils, where they fit in this. Is there going to be more pressure put on them? Is there going to be more expected of them? Are they going to be the only local body which is left, you know, close to the people? It's unknown. So much is unknown. We also need to think about the council's own risk register and make sure that that takes account of the additional risks that this is going to place upon the council. And I hope that that's being considered along with everything else. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, councillor. I think we're running out of speakers. So with that, if that's the last of the speakers, I'll go to the seconder. Your time is now.
Thank you, Chair. I won't talk for too long. My initial reaction to this situation wasn't anger, it was sorrow, because I think that the local contact that we all have with our residents who turn to us for help with all kinds of things, they know where we are. Some 5,000 people came downstairs, it came into this building downstairs to ask for help with all kinds of problems that they've got. 5,000 people last year came into this building. They're not going to be able to do that from 2028 because we don't know where the building is going to be. So where will they go? If it's anything like the size of a county councillor, and I completely agree with Councillor Bailey, this won't be a job for people or a position for people that can do this in their spare time. It will be a full-time job. It completely will change the people that will stand for election, because they're going to have to either be independently wealthy, retired, or unemployed, so that they can then do this as a full-time job, become a career politician. And that's not who any of us are, a career, well, obviously the odd exception. We're not career politicians. We are here because we care about our communities. And this is what makes it so sad for me. I just overwhelmingly sad about this. However, we will make the best of it. We have got to make the best of it. We have got to find the best solution that gives the best local solutions for our residents, because they've all come over the last years to rely on us for all kinds of weird things, like your 80-year-old lady. I had a lady contact me in January. She lived in Soham. Her relative lived in Isleham, she had a housing issue, a week of telephone calls and emails, and I was able to sort it out for her. She said, I said, how did you get hold of me? She said, oh, you were so easy to find. And I thought, yes, because I'm accessible. That's not going to happen in 3 years' time. And we've got to try and find a way that our residents are protected and that they have the access that they deserve and that they've got used to. And I understand when you say that, will our residents look back in 50 years' time and say, did we have free green bins? No, but they'll say, no, but we used to be able to get stuff done. We used to be able to knock on the door and say, can you help me? And somebody did. And I think that's what people, that will live long in the memory. Green bins may not, but people being friendly, people helping, accessibility will live long in the memory of our residents. And we need to make sure that that does not disappear with what can only be described as, my mother would say, throwing the baby out with the bathwater, which is what is happening with this reorganisation. We will make the best of it. We will look after our residents. We will get the best result, but it is being rushed. It hasn't been thought through, but that is the situation we find ourselves in. We will make the most of it. We will talk to all the authorities and get the best deal for our residents, because it's the only thing that we can do now to look after them for the future. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, councillor. And finally, back to councillor Bailey to sum up.
Thank you very much. What a great discussion, a great debate, and there's a huge amount of commonality in what everybody said, actually, and I've noted a few things down. I think we're all agreed that we need reorganisation, we need reform. We're all agreed that we're not very comfortable with this process and the timing and the criteria, the preloaded conditions that have been foisted upon us. We're all agreed about concerns for our staff, and we're all agreed that this is a huge and very important and long-lasting change. You know, and yes, current local services, as Councillor Huffer said, you know, may not live long in the memory, but I think the point about that is that because we're a small local council, we are nimble and we're reactive, and we know what our residents want, and we can shape and flavour our services and our responses to things because of that. And I look back to how this council dealt with COVID, and it was just the most amazing response. It was hyper local. Our residents were massively engaged, and it was amazing, actually, and that really embodied all of that. I think the number of residents per councillor is a very important consideration. I know that some European countries literally have like hundreds, like 200, 300, 400 residents per councillor. Wouldn't that be amazing? I mean, you'd be able to offer such an amazing personal service. And I do worry that when you're dealing with the whole range of issues that unitary councils throw up, and a larger number of residents inevitably, and larger patch sizes, we live in a rural area, I do worry about that, and I do worry that, you know, it will be tough to give people the same level of attention that we do now. Councillor Alison Whelan made some very thought-provoking comments, I thought, and talked about you know, that this is a drive for efficiency. And actually, I really question, is bigger more efficient? Because in my experience, you know, you look at the parish councils, my God, they deliver a big bang for their buck. And I believe we do here too. And we're small. And I think we are hugely efficient, you know, and this is about having, you know, we might end up with 3 chief executives and 3 senior management teams instead of 7. But actually, those costs are a complete drop in the ocean compared with the difference of running a council really efficiently and really well, and really driving efficiency in services. So I think that's a misnomer, I really do. And I saw Councillor Whelan agreeing with me vociferously. I'm absolutely, I know we're asking for a delegation here around changes to the letter. I'm not expecting any changes to the letter. I think the letter's gone through pretty smoothly. It's a pretty vanilla letter, frankly. And of course, we will continue to engage with our residents and parish councils and each other, absolutely. I was very interested in the very short contribution, but very salient from Councillor Miller in what he said, you know, in the fact that the government has not given us options here. And if it really believed in devolution, it would have given us free rein to come up with our own our own flavour of what this should look like for us. And I just want to tell you that about something that I put to the leaders and chief execs meeting on the 28th of February. It was flying a kite, I recognise that, and it was a pitch for something a bit different. But frankly, we're Cambridgeshire. We're the only net contributor to the national economy outside of London. We're the focus of government for its growth plans. Government needs us, and it needs us to do well. And it's fair to say that most leaders actually aren't embracing the idea of local government reorganisation. And I do believe that this gives us the opportunity to negotiate something better. And the kite that I flew was to push the big services like adult social care, children's social care, education, public health, waste disposal, up to the mayor and the combined authority. That sits well with the new powers that are planned for mayors around local commissioning of health services through the integrated care boards, which they're set to chair or co-chair through the devolution bill. And it means the big ticket services would be commissioned at scale, which is what is needed. Other services like highways maintenance, libraries, households waste recycling centres, the bits of planning that sit with county would all come down to the district and Peterborough councils. So the county council would go and Peterborough City Council would look different. It would operate more like the districts. And this would cause far less upheaval. Districts already have much of the structure in place. And if the government wants to call us unitary, I've got no problem with that. And I also believe, and I'm nearly there, Chairman, if you just indulge me, I also believe that this model should consider local delivery of adult and children's social care. The neighbourhood cares model that was piloted by Cambridgeshire County Council was all about hyper-local delivery of social care. It happened in Soham. And it proved that local, nimble, responsive delivery by people embedded in the community and caring about their community achieves better outcomes and costs less long term. And I truly believe that that's part of the answer to the biggest cost burden being faced by local government. And in my setup, we've got the perfect
If you can wrap up,
opportunity
please.
to be able to commission big and deliver small. And I think we should model this and present it as an opportunity for something better and something different. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Good debate. Looking at the recommendations, to note and progress the LGR in Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, and 2.2 to delegate authority to the Chief Executive in consultation with the Leader of the Council to finalise the proposed letter as set out in Appendix 1, along with other council leaders, as our interim submission to government by the 21st of March 2025. I'm actually going to ask for a show of hands and a vote on acceptance of both recommendations, just to show, I think, what is unanimous. That we are unanimous. I'll say that. I couldn't get the word out. So all those in favour of accepting the recommendations, please. That is unanimous, and I got the word right that time. Ladies and gentlemen, it is before 7 o'clock, and that concludes the night's business. We thank you very much. And babysitters are not getting much money tonight. Thank you very much. Good night.